What happens when our children get the coronavirus, and what happens when they have to build an immunity to COVID-19? Hi guys, this is your host Karishma. Welcome back to As We Speak, and I want to welcome everyone to my first ever Zoom interview with Dr. Rania Hawaik, a specialist pediatrician at the Circle Care Clinic here in Dubai. Dr. Rania, you've been amazing with all your updates on Instagram and sort of guiding us sort of one crisis at a time. So I hope you don't mind me asking you a couple of questions.
Not at all. Thank you for having me. Thank you for setting this up.
Thank you so much, Dr. Rania. So, Doctor, tell me, how is Dubai faring in terms of battling corona as compared to the rest of the world? You know, I see that the cases are sort of steady. They're not like exponential. So are we already flattening the curve?
I mean, I think Dubai is doing very well compared to the rest of the world. I think Dubai was one of the first places where schools were closed, and I think Dubai's been observing and learning from countries before us that were hit with it. And if you think about it, Dubai was a prime candidate to have it very bad with corona because we're such a crossroads for everyone in the world, and we connect the east to the west. And I think there are so many factors about Dubai that help its cause, which is the fact that we are a young, healthy population, the fact that you have the part of the population that lives in very close quarters is sort of separate to the rest of the population. So I'm talking about the laborers and the low-income earners, so those are the people that are most at risk of passing the viruses onto each other, whereas the rest of us don't. So there is a sort of a strange setup in Dubai where we don't share public transport with these people, we don't share space with these people. So there are many things, but the authorities are also throwing everything at it. So resources here, we know, are plentiful. So in terms of medications, in terms of facilities, in terms of tests, we are one of the places in the world with the highest number of tests. So on the whole, I think we're very lucky to be where we are.
So, doctor, tell me, the children get the coronavirus, and if they do, what's the age group that's most susceptible from sort of 0 to 18?
So yes, children do get the coronavirus, and I would say that the most susceptible would be the ones in the very early months of life. So those are the children in the first 3 to 6 months of life, mainly because their immune system is not very robust at the time. But for the majority, children are known mainly as the transmitters and not the people sick with it. So they are more likely to carry it and not have any symptoms and transmit it to their parents and their grandparents, which is the group we're worried about.
And say if a teenager got it, like a 13-year-old, would he be separated? Would he or she be separated from the parents?
So I mean, this is the question. This is like the $1 million question that everyone's been asking. And to be honest, I don't know the exact answer, but what I can tell you is from my own experience and just from things I've gleaned from different examples. So we've all read about these quarantine centers or these hotels that have been converted to be like sort of run by hospitals as quarantine centers for people who are well with corona. The age to be admitted there is from 18 to 50 years old. So in essence, they don't put in any children younger than that, okay? And then I've also had it firsthand from colleagues of mine working in hospitals who have had cases of positive children who've caught it from their parents. That the advice is if the child is well, so far I've heard they are asked to quarantine at home and be checked on regularly, and if things were to escalate, to be admitted with the mother. So I cannot imagine anywhere in the world, especially Dubai, but I cannot imagine anywhere in the world choosing to take over childcare from the parents, because looking after a sick child does not only entail taking a temperature, giving them a couple of, like a paracetamol dose. It entails feeding them, changing them, washing them, playing with them, chatting to them. That's such a big burden on the healthcare system. Why would they do that? So the answer would be that if a child was to catch corona, and in the case where the parent was asymptomatic, I do believe, and if that child is well, the likelihood is that they will not be admitted and they will be looked after at home. And if that child is unwell, they probably will be admitted the way any unwell child is admitted. And I'm sure some precautions are taken to protect the parent, but the parent would be there. I can't imagine it happening in any other way.
That's good to know. And now, how would I know if my child needed a coronavirus test or a flu swab, for example?
Okay, so very good question. You don't know the difference. afterwards, because both symptoms can present very differently. As in, what I mean to say is they can present very similar to each other, but within the same illness, you can have very different symptoms. So it's difficult to say, yes, this is influenza, or yes, this is corona. Now, if there is contact with a known case, okay, and especially at this time, our children have been home now for a good, 6 weeks? No, 7, yeah. The likelihood, if you have been social distancing properly, the likelihood of your child catching viruses is very low. And I know we raise our hand and say, knock on wood so that no one gets sick. Our children have been the healthiest for the longest time, because those runny noses have disappeared, the coughs have disappeared, they're not mixing with each other. So my advice is any illness at the moment should be considered corona unless proven otherwise, because that is the one big virus that we know is extremely contagious and can be silent, that could pass through someone with no symptoms. But the likelihood of it going through a parent and not giving them symptoms to the child and giving them symptoms is quite small. It's unlikely. For everyone else in the household, be it, the house help, the parents, anyone else there who's older, be absolutely fine, and the child gets corona, unless the child was mixing with a neighbor's kid, who then was sick or something like that. So how do you know if your child needs testing? If your child is unwell and was in contact with a known case, they need to be tested. If your child is unwell in such a way that you can't manage it at home with your anti-fever medications, then they need to be checked by a doctor, whatever happens, because regardless of what the cause is, you could start with a teleconsult. We're doing a lot of that, and then your doctor would guide you whether you need to come in for a flu swab, a strep swab, or go to a test center.
So how effective do you think the school closures have been for coronavirus? Why do you think that they were closed in the first place? Because they were the first things to close. And I mean, how long do you see this being a sustainable measure?
So how effective do I think the school closures were? Extremely. And why were they to close first? Because children tend to be the biggest transmitters of viruses in general. So I think they were very effective, and I think that was one of Dubai's most winning steps when it comes to controlling spread. Okay, and then how sustainable is this measure? I mean, we are both victims of e-learning as well. So I think the schools are doing a very good job with e-learning, and I think we know that we're looking at this being the case towards the end of this academic year, and I think we'll just have to see how we flatten this curve and how the numbers drop, whether it's feasible to even open up in September. I mean, I'm hearing about places in Europe who are opening up next month with outdoor classes and physically further apart desks and things. I mean, we know that's not something we can do in the summer, it's too hot. So whether or not, there will be a shorter school day where classes will take place in sports halls, where I don't know whether there will be alternate school days for different classes, whether it will be, who knows.
So you're saying this could be in some measures until we find a vaccine?
I mean, I think that's the answer. So what are the escape strategies? Well, the vaccine is the ultimate escape strategy, because that will allow even the elder people and the vulnerables to come out of hiding, okay? And then another escape strategy is to have a very effective treatment, like you would have Tamiflu for influenza. So if we knew and with effective treatment, there needs to be effective early testing. So the ability to test and know you've carried it, to start the treatment quickly before you become very sick, that would be equally effective, especially for younger people who are, we're talking about between their 30s and 60s, to go out and actually work, so go back to work, and which would then allow their children, that would mean that in that same time, you have to take their children to school. You can't leave their children at home because they're not there to support them. So the two have to happen in parallel. So until one or both of these things have happened, and I think a treatment is likely to happen before a vaccine, we are unlikely to go back to a fully normal life. There will be measures of social distancing and maybe restrictions of movement waxing and waning over the next months.
So the kids have been at home for about 6 weeks now. They aren't even allowed to go to the grocery stores. How will they eventually develop an immunity then to coronavirus?
Very good question. So Ultimately, the best way to develop an immunity to any virus is to catch it, fight it, and develop the antibodies. That in its own right is being studied about corona. There are question marks about whether the immunity that one develops is lasting, and whether or not you can catch it again, whether or not if you catch it again it's a mild illness, etc., etc. So the best way for them to develop immunity is either to catch it or to get a vaccine. So because we're still at the stage where we don't understand the immunity, what's the point of putting them through it if you don't know if that's lasting immunity? Or because we still don't know who is likely to get complications, whether it's a child or an adult, there are some freak occurrences where people, even when they're seen as healthy and unlikely to get complications, do. It's a bit too dangerous to test that theory, in my opinion. And I think both of us would agree we wouldn't put our children through, now. But give it a few weeks to months when the healthcare system, when doctors who are on the front line are actually understand it and know the virus so much more, it will be so much safer to do that. But you're right, look, until we get to a stage where 70% of the population has immunity, we don't achieve herd immunity. And with the way we're doing social distancing, we're not going to get there easily.
What are your top tips to, increase a child's immunity to coronavirus?
So my top tips are basic principles. Sleep well, drink lots of fluids, eat a balanced, healthy diet. And in this time, because we're spending more time indoors, boost your child's vitamin D. It's been linked to, improving immunity. If you were to boost that, the normal daily recommended dose for children from the age of 1 onwards is 800 international units a day if they don't eat enough fortified dairy products. I think in this time it's sound to put them on that or 1,000 units a day because they're not being exposed to the sun as much. The other thing is vitamin C. So unless, if they do eat a rich fruit and vegetable diet, you don't need to boost it because it's so much better to absorb it from food. But let's say your child's a picky eater, I would definitely boost them with an oral vitamin C supplement. I would just follow the instructions on any pack because the 100% daily requirement is plenty. And then the third micronutrient I would definitely mention is zinc. Zinc is one which is not so easy to get in food unless your child is not allergic and enjoys eating nuts. Nuts are zinc rich. So if your child will eat nuts or if your child isn't allergic, my trick that I learned from a very good friend of mine, Lives and Promotes, who's a health coach, is 3 Brazil nuts a day. If you crush those, 3 Brazil nuts a day, adult or child, if you crush those and mix them into a porridge or eat them raw or just put them in the food, they're tasteless Brazil nuts, they're quite easy to incorporate, give you all the zinc you need. And if your child can't eat nuts because they're allergic or you find it difficult doing that, then get a zinc supplement.
Thank you so much for doing this. And guys, he's on Insta at Dr.Rania DXB. Am I correct?
Yeah, so yeah, it's Dr. DXB.
That was some great information from Dr. Rania. Do post any questions or comments you have in the section below. And don't forget to subscribe to As We Speak Now on YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook. Thank you so much for watching, guys. Stay safe, stay healthy, and see you soon.